Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Randy Hawkins, Chair of the Public Outreach Educational Wellness Committee. I want to ask all of us to please turn our cell phones to silent. You may notice committee members accessing their laptops during the meeting. They're using a laptop solely to access the board meeting's materials that are in electronic format. This is an official meeting, business meeting of the Medical Board of California. As such, disruption of the board's business will not be tolerated. We have a designated time on the agenda for public comment and ask for public comment on each item. I ask that you be respectful of the need to conduct the board's business. Should anyone disrupt the meeting, I'll ask the person to conduct himself or herself in such a manner that permits the board to transact its business. This meeting will be available via teleconference. Individuals listening to the meeting will have an opportunity to provide public comment and will be assisted by a moderator who will be facilitating the teleconferencing process. For those members of the public participating via the teleconference, please wait until the moderator has introduced you before you make any comments. To request to make a comment during the public comment period, please press *1. You will hear a tone indicating you're in the queue for comment. If you change your mind and do not want to make a comment, press *2. Assistance is available throughout the teleconference meeting. To request a specialist, press *0. Each person will be limited to 3 minutes per agenda item. However, during agenda item 2, public comment items not on the agenda, the board has limited the public comment period to individuals on the teleconference to 20 minutes. In addition, public comment from individuals here at the meeting will also be limited to 20 minutes. Therefore, after 20 minutes, no further comments will be accepted. During the public comment on any agenda item, 10 minutes will be allowed for comments from individuals on the teleconference line and those in the audience. After 10 minutes, no further comment will be accepted. Business services staff will be assisting me with receiving the public comment via teleconference during this meeting. The board welcomes public comment on any item on the agenda. It is the board's intent to ask for public comment prior to the board taking action on any agenda item. If for some reason I forget to ask for public comment on an agenda item you wish to speak to, please raise your hand. You'll be recognized. I'd like to request all speakers to complete a speaker's presenter slip so I can ask you by name. However, this is not mandatory. Please give the speaker slip to Ms. Simones. Ms. Simones, please identify yourself. I'll do my best to call upon everyone who has supplied a slip for the agenda item and recognize those who wish to make a last-minute comment. I want to remind all speakers to please stay on task and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. We have a Ms. Simones, roll call.
Dr. Hawkins?
Present.
Dr. Kraus?
Here.
Dr. Levine?
Here.
Dr. Lewis?
Present.
Ms. Pines?
Here.
Ms. Sutton-Wills? Mr. Wormuth?
Here.
We have a quorum. Did I neglect to say that the time of the meeting started is 1:05 p.m. First item is public comments on items not on the agenda, and I have a slip from the audience. Ms. Wendy Connor, please come forward, Ms. Connor. Please use a microphone.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Medical Board and Mr. Chair, or Dr. Chair. I'm really happy to be here. First of all, I want to thank the Medical Board for its public access and proactive stance in making a better world for the public. I have spoken with the Medical Board before, but it was a long time ago, and you were all different people then. In 2000, a doctor blinded me in one eye, and I went on to work with the Medical Board, and we got the passage of SB 1950 and AB 2260 regarding gag clauses. And so I am very grateful to the board for their availability to the public. My issue today is regarding the age of aging physicians and their competency. The doctor who blinded me was in his mid-70s. Nothing happened. It took years. 5 years later, he had maimed several other people and eventually was just allowed to surrender his license and retire. It was basically a get-out-of-jail-free card. He used his age and was able to retire. I don't know if he was a sociopath or if he had cognitive issues regarding his age, but I have run into other situations with other healthcare practitioners. I recently had a situation with someone not governed by the medical board, but under the DCA through a different regulatory agency, an 86-year-old therapist who handed off my sessions notes and private information to an unauthorized party when she was confronted. And I know she's not covered by this board. I went through it with the behavioral sciences, and they don't care. And when this woman was confronted, she was very confused. She had no idea who she had sent it to. She never asked me first. And what it's brought up for me is the question of, just as we all age and lose our edge, is it possible a physician can age and lose his edge? And the answer is yes, because we are all human. There's the case of the Dr. Bernard Sarnat. He was licensed in 1937. He died at the age of 99 while he was performing a surgery, in the middle of surgery. Pilots have to retire at 65. Pilots start getting cognitive testing at the age of 40. You would not get on a plane if you knew the pilot was 99. If you knew your surgeon was 99, would you have that surgery done? I know the guy who blinded me didn't look like he was in his mid-70s. He had done plastic surgery. I had no idea what his age was. As a protection to the public, there does need to be some kind, just like when you get your driver's license.
Please conclude.
I'm sorry?
Please conclude.
Basically, studies show that mortality rates increase as a physician gets older. AMA, Stanford, many institutions talk about implementing testing of some kind at some age. What age, that needs to be determined, but there is definitely a decline in ability, eye-hand coordination, and decision-making ability as a physician gets older. I am proof of that in my permanently blind eye. And for the protection of the public, Australia has some testing implemented. Kaiser makes doctors retire at 65. State of California needs to be proactive. If you can't drive a car at 85, you shouldn't be able to perform a surgery. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, and I hope you will stay for the entire quarterly meeting. That subject is being addressed in one of our sessions. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Are there any comments from the phones?
Are there any comments on the line?
At this time, there are no comments on the phone.
At this time, there are no comments.
Agenda item 3 is approval of the minutes from the January 26, 2017 meetings.
So moved. So moved. Second.
Are there any comments from the audience? Are there any comments on the phone?
Are there any comments on the phone?
There are no comments at this time.
There are
Ms.
no
Cruz
comments
Jones, please call the roll.
Dr. Hawkins,
Yes.
Dr. Kraus,
Aye.
Dr. Levine,
I need to abstain. I was not at the meeting.
Dr. Lewis,
Aye.
Ms. Pines,
Aye.
Ms. Sutton Wills,
Yes.
Mr. Warmoth.
Aye.
The next agenda item is number 4, presentation on new technological outreach. Mr. Ekelkrat, Mr. Aslami, and Ms. Kirschmeyer. and I'm told we're in for a treat. That's what I was told.
Actually, I'm going to start it off. I said I would wait till the end, but I just what you're going to hear is, I think, a real treat in our opinion. This is something that is unlike any other at this time that we know of. You're going to hear from our Information Systems Branch Program Manager and one of the staff from ISB, and we're really excited about what they have to say and the app that they're going to show you. Like I said, from what we have found anyway, we believe that this is the first in the nation for this type of application that we're going to be presenting, and definitely the first, I believe, from all of the boards under the Department of Consumer Affairs, and we're happy to be first out of the gate. So with that, without any more anticipation, we'll let you know what that is.
Thank you for having us. Again, as Kim mentioned, this is something we're really excited about, so I'm going to try not to linger on too long about it and just address the main points about it. My name is Sean Eichelkraut. I'm the manager, as Kim mentioned, of the Information System Branch of the Medical Board of California, and with me is Frank Salami today, who's the programmer that did the heavy lifting on this one in terms of putting the code together and launching this new application that we're calling right now the Medical Board of California's iOS application. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the term iOS, it's the operating system that iPhones and iPads run on. So an iOS application is an application that can run on an iPhone, an iPad, or both. In this case, if you program it right, it will behave the same way on either type of device. To go into the introduction slide to tell you a little bit about the initial release of this application, it's got two main features we're really excited about. We think these two features are good enough to bring this product to launch after discussing it with you all, but it's a platform that we continue to add things to in the future. So that's a nice single application space where we can put everything we want to into the system. So the first main feature of the system that we want to show you guys today is going to be that all of the medical board's content from our website is customized and reformatted and in the application so that you can view it on the go. It's akin to having the bookmark in your browser, but it's in a even more, our website is already in a mobile-friendly format, but this takes it a step farther and customize it purely for the mobile application side. We'll show some video here in a few minutes so you can see how that looks. But basically, all of the website, all of our information there, this is like our one-stop shop for the medical board's information on the website. The new really exciting feature is that it will allow users to follow physician and surgeon licenses that they are interested in. So we went with the word follow to convey the idea of, like in social media and Twitter, where you follow someone you're interested in so that you have quick access to their, in like Twitter, what they post, and you can also be notified when certain things they do take place. And we'll get into that later on too. As Kim mentioned, this is, from our research, this is the first application like this created by a state medical board with this functionality, and also the first iOS application created by any board and bureau of the California Department of Consumer Affairs. So we're excited to be the first ones to do it. Next slide, we would talk about why we chose to do iOS. We took a look at our Q1 data from our website in 2018, Q1, and we found that approximately 30% of our website traffic now is on mobile devices. So that's pretty good. It's obviously trending up every year a little bit, but 30% is a significant amount of traffic, to the point where a mobile application definitely makes sense. And when we isolate that mobile traffic and look at the devices types that they're coming from, we found that approximately 70% of that mobile traffic is from iOS devices, iPhones and iPads. That made up about 65,000 unique user visits for that first quarter of 2018. So a lot of people are coming and visiting our site on their iPhone and iPad. It just made iOS the logical choice for it. Android's the other major player in the mobile market, and even though the phone sales are about 50-50, we just noticed with our traffic it seems to be more heavily weighted towards iPhones and iPads. The question of why to go ahead and do this application now was, it basically it wasn't possible technologically to do this in the past with the old Breeze license lookup system. We coordinated and collaborated with the Department of Consumer Affairs on the development of their new DCA search system that they launched in October of 2017. And several of the features that we had been looking to add into our own license lookup when we ran it prior to Breeze, they were able to incorporate into this new license lookup system. One of those key features is that the DCA search application is built using what's called the Application Programmer Interface, or API in computer terms, where it basically allows two computer systems to talk to each other and exchange data in a way that's easy to use in another system. You don't have to worry about the formatting and everything. It's just raw data, and we can pull it out and use it anyway. This screenshot, hard to read across the room, but it's basically the data is in just one big blob, but the computer can read it and parse it out, and you authorized users of the DCA search interface can use this data in whatever way. We've been working with credentialing organizations and other hospital organizations to let their computer systems pull this data so they can do their credentialing in a more efficient manner even as well. The same web services that provide this data for the DCA search user interface that I'm sure you all have seen can be used to pull data out and use in our iOS application. While we're talking about DCA search, I want to take a quick moment to emphasize the significance that having these web services available through the DCA search API is going to provide us endless possibilities in future for future development of applications. These types of web services are a standard way that modern computer systems share data, and we're very appreciative of the hard work that the Department of Consumer Affairs Office of Information Services and their DCA search team put into this product. It's the Breeze license lookup search. It was functional, but this new system provides a lot more opportunity. So that first functionality point that I mentioned, the customized web content in the application, basically you can see from the video here, when you launch the application on your phone, it brings up a page that looks very much like the home page on our website. The banner on the top, the menu buttons are hidden, the background images, everything's stripped down, so it's just the content in the application. The menu bar, and from across the room it's really hard to see the icons down along the bottom there, but the menu bar that you normally see at the top of our website that has the home, consumers, applicants, licensees, and about us tabs has been replaced with what's called a tab bar in iOS at the bottom of the screen there. So you still get that functionality of being able to bounce through the different sections of the website, but in a mobile app, that kind of tabbing would be down at the bottom to provide the content up at the top. It's streamlined. It's just the data. It's taking advantage of all the space available in the screen so that the users can read through there and look for the sections that they're looking for. Again, that's just like a portal into our website. I think it's a great way to have it all in one place. Users don't even have to bookmark it. They just install our app. It's there for them to take a look at anytime. The next slide we go into is the really exciting part for us. The ability to follow a physician surgeon license, again, is keyed in through the DCA search interface. Currently, we have several methods that we use to relay information to consumers regarding license data. Users can go straight to the DCA search interface. We send out subscriber email blasts, news releases. Breeze itself has a license subscription email feature that will tell you certain information changed on a license. And then we also post action lists to our website so that they can be incorporated into newsletters and people can review all the action taken against licensees over particular time frames. But all these methods required regular and frequent searching, finding and reviewing of the license profile to see what had changed, if any change had happened, and also reviewing data that potentially isn't a license you're interested in. We think that we found a better way to do it through this application, and so we've built in a little feature. There's an icon up at the top, highlighted here in a blue rounded corner box at the top. It's hard to see what that icon looks like, but it basically looks like a stack of licenses to indicate that these are the licenses that you're going to be interested in the future. Clicking on that application will take you to the following screen that will list on there the licenses that you're interested in. So when you click the magnifying glass up at the top of the screen, it takes you to the DCA search interface where you can do a name search or a license search. In this case, we're searching for Dr. Ronald Lewis here, our board member. And when we find his particular profile page, we click the follow button up at the top. Now, it'll open up a dialog box here where we can give a personalized description of how we want to remember Dr. Lewis is in our list. So we went in there and put in a description of him. It's hard to read that there, but it says one of our board members down under his name and license number in that following list. So in this list now, you will have it so you can add up to 10 licenses in there to to save that license and say, these are people that I'm interested in following over time. So again, you can give your personalized name there, and they're always there to come back. It saves that in the memory on your phone or on your iPad, saying that this is someone that I'm interested in looking at in the future. The next slide shows us that we can come back into the application at a later time, and if we want to change that customized name that we give them, again, I'm sorry, it's hard to read here, but if we swipe right and we hit edit, the edit button that's shown there, it gives us another chance to update that thing, and so now we type in there one of our favorite board members, so we can have that label for Dr. Lewis's license in here in the application. So again, it's a little tough to read there, but so the line under Dr. Lewis's name there says one of our favorite board members there. It can be a descriptive name of any length that you want it to stick in there. It could be in the little dialogue that pops up, the example we give is Sally's cardiologist. So if you're seeing multiple people, or you have multiple people in your family that are seeing different types of doctors, you can label them in there accordingly. The next slide will take us to the ability to go into the application and instantly go back to that license profile. So just because we've saved that and said we're following that license, every time we go back into that following list now and we click on that license, we don't have to go into DCA search and search for them anymore. It's going to jump us straight forward into that. I'll go back to the previous slide and play the video through to where it goes through. Sorry about that. It'll go back to the list here. We'll see Dr. Lewis's name, and when we click on there, it's going back out to DCA search and bringing up his profile information as it is right now when I click that button. So even though it's only been a minute or two here, it's gone back out to the system and pulling up what his profile now is. So you can imagine if you check that every week, you'd see the weekly, if there were any updates, you're seeing the most current profile out there according to DCA search. But you didn't have to do the searching, you didn't have to remember his license number, you didn't have to do anything. It's just basically like it's bookmarked there for you to go back and check it at any time. So it allows the user, whenever they want to go ahead and check to see, was there an update done. The next slide will show that we can go in there, and it's just part of the maintenance of your following list. You can basically use the swipe left functionality to delete that license out of your following list. You're no longer interested in having that individual in your list. So sorry, Dr. Lewis, we're going to go ahead and remove you here now.
Didn't get to my prison.
But so that functionality that you can add to your list, edit your list, delete your list, change it over time as you go on. It's not set in stone. It's up to the user to put who they want in there. The user is the only one that knows who they have in there, so there's nothing on our systems or anything tracking who that person is following. The swipe left for the edit, the swipe right for the delete are part of Apple's, they call them their human interface guidelines that basically dictate that this is how iOS applications should work. So it's very intuitive for a user to know that when you have a record in a list like that, you can swipe left and swipe right to do different functions on them, things like that. So we think it's pretty cool that you can go back in there, you can take a look at that profile anytime you want to, but having that list now and knowing who the doctors are that you're interested in allows us to do that API call that I mentioned earlier, where we can have your phone actually, you don't even have to go out and check. Your phone on a frequent basis will go out, make that API call, get all that new data for you and say, did anything change from the last time I looked? And if anything changed from the last time, next slide, it will notify the user by popping up like a message box that you guys are used to getting when you get a text message or a new email or an update from your bank, any kind of thing like that. We have instant messaging apps and email apps that pop up all the time. Again, the banking account that tells you when something's withdrawn or deposited into your account. Well, now you can be notified when a license that you follow is updated by the Medical Board of California's iOS application. If the application is installed on the device, the user is prompted when they initially install it if they want to receive these notifications. It's an opt-in feature that some people don't want excessive notifications on their phone. So when it's first installed, it'll ask them, do you want to receive these notifications? If they opt into them, then the device uses a proprietary Apple algorithm called optimistic background fetch to automatically decide when to go out and do these calls. So what we've set a limit that we don't want to bog down or be a resource drain at all on the DCA search system. So we tell it, don't bother checking any more frequently than every 8 hours. From there, Apple's proprietary algorithm basically looks at several factors. It takes a look at the user's usage habits, network availability, battery usage, and other background fetch tasks in queue to decide when to go out and do that check. So if you're sleeping, it's probably not going to bother going out and doing that. But every morning when you wake up and you look at your phone, it goes, okay, I know that you look at your phone every morning at 7 a.m., so I might decide to go check this data at 6:30, so when you get on your phone, I can tell you if there was an update. Again, it's not something that we can control. We just know it won't happen any more frequently than every 8 hours, and in our testing, it happens a couple times a day, at least once a day, based on the user's behavior. The application must remain running in the background on the devices for the background fetch and notifications to run. There's basically what's akin to on a computer is doing the control-alt-delete and closing out an application. There's something called a force close on an iPhone and iPad. Most users never do that. We all just hit the home button and the app goes away, and it's sitting there running in the background doing these things for you. So as long as the app is running, you're going to get the benefits of these notifications and background fetches. There are 6 different types of categories of updates that the application checks, and a special case for if multiple of these cases come up. It'll send out basically 7 different types of notifications we'll run through here. When you do receive a notification on the phone, it's as simple as tapping on that notification, and again, it'll take you right back to the licensee that you're following, straight into their profile on DCA Search, so you can review the whole profile and see what's changed. Is it of significance to you, basically? So the first type of notification is a status notification. So anytime the primary, secondary, or a fee-exempt modifier changes on a license, a little pop-up box like what's shown here drops out of the top. Now these slides that we'll be showing here, this shows if you're actively on your phone, it's open and unlocked, and you're doing something else, the notification will slide down from the top. You have the ability to click on it to go to that profile or swipe it up to just basically dismiss this, and then it's saved in your notification center for reference later. But it does pop down and notify the user when they're on their phone. A status notification could indicate something like a license going into delinquent status. Their expiration date is passed and they haven't renewed their license. It could be a secondary status code that could indicate some various type of disciplinary action like probation. Anytime a probation status code would be applied to a license, it would notify the user, hey, I see probation on here now. Or maybe an individual going into retired status. That also would pop up through this type of notification. The second type of notification is a address of record notification. So if an individual moves from Sacramento to Los Angeles, it will pop up and notify you that their address of record has changed in the system. That might not have any effect on where they're practicing or anything like that. It's just informing you that the individual's updated that piece of information in their license record. The next type of notification is when the expiration date changes. So if your licensee that you're following renews their license and their expiration date goes from 2018 to 2020, it can inform you, hey, your licensee is in good standing again for another 2 years on their renewal. There's one caveat to that. When we have an individual license that goes into either cancel, surrendered, revoked, or deceased status, we suppress the expiration date in that case so that there's no confusion as to what that expiration date truly means with A while back, we had some individuals thinking that a license in deceased status, the expiration date could possibly be the date of death. So to clarify that confusion, we actually removed that. So when we suppress that expiration date in those 4 different types of statuses, this notification will not pop up, just because we don't want to create any type of confusion. The next type of notification is a physician survey notification. So if a licensee that you follow updates their physician survey and indicate maybe that they have a new primary specialty or that they've obtained a new board certification, you can bring that to your attention. Again, you just would click on that link and you'd scroll down to the physician survey section and review it and see what's updated. Another type of notification is a public document notification. So when we post a public document to our website about this individual, it's available on their DCA search license profile. It'll tell you, hey, a new public document's out here. Go ahead and review them. And finally, the public record action type of notification. So the various types of public record actions that we put out there, including administrative disciplinary actions, felony or misdemeanor convictions, malpractice judgments, arbitration awards, all the various types under the DCA search public record action section. If a new record is inserted in there or if that record is updated at all, it will post the notification letting you know to go out there and take a look at that. A lot of times that will happen in conjunction, sometimes with a public document. Some of these different notifications can happen at the same time. If a individual they renew their license and they submit a new survey application or a new survey, you could have both of those things trigger at the same time. So to avoid confusion on that, we have a notification that's just a kind of a generic license profile updated. That tells you that 2 or more of those different 6 notifications we just talked about have occurred, and you should go in there and review it. It could be, like I had mentioned, a disciplinary action and a public document or a public record action being posted all at the same time. So we kind of have all the different elements of the DCA search license profile, and they're covered, and then a special way to tell you if multiple things happen. Again, these are all examples of when the license or when the device is unlocked and opened and the user's on it. On the next slide, we have an example of if your phone's off, it's in your pocket, you're away from it, something happens, and you come back and you turn on your phone, you'll see the screenshot there in the middle. I'm sure you're familiar if any of you have iPhone, where you'll have your list of your notifications from the last time you looked up your phone. If you're like me, that draws you to it from across the room, and you turn it on and you check what happened. And so this is an example of the lock screen indicator, where it'll tell you here this was a status code updated alert here, but it still shows you there if you're away from your phone. When you come back to it, it's there waiting for you to tell you about it. And then the screenshot on the right is a sample of if you clicked on that notification, it would take you right into that license and show you the details. You can scroll up and down through it and review what has changed. The I mentioned Apple's human interface guidelines. They put together a extensive list of suggestions for you to build these applications and how to build them to be intuitive for users. We followed all of those principles that they've laid out. It's very, very detailed how far they go into it, but we still understand that there's some people that aren't regular mobile application users or want a little help. We have in the application a little question mark up at the upper right hand corner there, and it's highlighted there. We will be building into the application it's basically an overlay that when you first install the application and the first time you start the application, you'll get a little tutorial to kind of point out the things. Now, most people skip through it, but other people will be interested in seeing that information. And then we'll also have a link that takes you to an even more detailed section where we hope to have a video tutorial that walks people through it. So those that aren't comfortable with mobile phone applications and stuff like that, they can kind of get that introduction to the application before they start using it. We've held off on doing that. I'd really love to show you that today, but we've been holding off to make sure that the development's done before we make those kinds of videos and things like that. If we were to go and change anything, it would be a big resource drain to go and recreate all those things. But we have baked that into the application to have the in-application help available, both through a simple overlay pointing out things to the users, and then even a full-blown 2.5 to 3 minute video explaining how to use the system. I mentioned that this is the starting block for what could be all kinds of extra functionality added in there into the future. A couple of the things that we've, have on our potential list here would be adding a share button. So I don't know if you've been on Amazon or something like that and you see a product and you're interested in buying it and you want to send it to your significant other or something and say, hey, should I order this? There's a little share button right in the Amazon app, and you hit that share button and it sends all that information to one of your contacts in your phone. Well, we can do that with our licensee. If I'm following a particular licensee and a status update happens, I can text that to my wife and say, hey, take a look at this. That ability to share that information with your contacts, it's kind of standard in these types of applications nowadays. Our traditional email subscriber alerts that are available through our website that cover actions relating to the license or practice of physicians and surgeons, board meeting notices, newsletters and news releases and regulations could be implemented into this, so you don't have to provide us with your email through our normal website process. If you have this app in here and you want to receive those notifications, we can have them pop up right in the app. The idea of embedding a contact us form so that individual, right now you can go to the about us section of the website in the application and click the contact us, and there's the webmaster link in there, but we could have a special form in the app that would make that a little easier for users. The idea of adding more than just physician and surgeon license types in, we could have the midwives, the polysomnographic, all the different types of license types we do in there to expand kind of the features there. A portal into our Twitter feed so that we could help publicize our Twitter for others to gain followers on that side. And then eventually we'd like to look at the possibility of creating a matching Android app so that Android users could have this same functionality. Again, we looked at the website data, and that's what led us to iOS first, and we're kind of doing this to mature the idea of the application, and then we could port that into an Android. It'd be a whole separate project and another large project for one of our programmers to work on, but the idea of offering both is sort of commonplace with these types of applications. And finally, I've been going on here long enough, so I know Carlos has a bunch of outreach information in his presentation coming up, so I'll just kind of glance over this. But in order to get the word out about this application when it does finally go to launch, we plan on advertising on our website by putting an available on the App Store icon. I don't know if you guys are familiar with seeing those on different websites, but there's kind of a standard Apple icon that people put on their websites that's universally recognizable by iOS users. We'll send out an email blast to our applicants, licensees, and other subscribers. This could be a good tool for even a licensee to put themselves in their own application, and they can keep track of their own license that way. We want to publish an article in our upcoming newsletter discussing the functionality, and then also advertising it on our social media campaigns in Twitter and everywhere else Carlos is planning upcoming outreach. So again, I hope I didn't run through any of that too fast there. Thank you for letting us come and present this to you. We're welcoming any feedback the board has to do. We're very interested in getting this out as quickly as possible. We wanted to give you guys all definitely ability to comment and address any issues or concerns you might have with it before we officially wrap up development and start looking at a date to launch this in the Apple App Store. So thank you.
Well, great. For the entire board, I want to thank and congratulate staff for their forward-thinking approach to notification, access, and education of the public. I'm not going to ask questions of myself. Any questions or comments from the board? Let's start at the Grouse. Dr. Kraus first.
Again, this is very exciting. Do us all a favor. When you launch it, let it run for a week or two or three and let us test it. I'm reminded of the debacle of healthcare.gov, where it was so publicized and so immediately overused and failed that it created the black eye for the federal government at the time. But I have no doubt that this is going to be incredible, and I congratulate you on having developed it. And after we see its success, I'd also like to be sure that we let all of our state assemblymen and senators know that we have not only met but exceeded what they have requested in the way of having a platform for consumer notification. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Pines?
We have already begun testing on local devices and things like that, but we do hope to offer to test it throughout the medical board with all the staff and get a lot of testing in before we release this to the public.
Ms. Pines?
Yeah, I think this is awesome. This is amazing. I really like how we sort of took it, what we've been doing online, to the next step, which is our phones, which everybody has. And I know not everyone has the more higher end phones. Definitely as you age, you tend to want a really sort of simple interface. But I think for everybody else that this really gives us all the kind of access that we've been looking for outside of a desktop platform. I did have a question around the in-app help, and you may have talked about this, but I was curious as to whether or not some of the notification explanations will be in there.
So the notifications themselves are, we're purposely not trying to point out what changed. We're trying to give them the section that changed and say, go out and review it in its entirety. So like if your license goes into delinquent status, we don't say the license went into delinquent status. We said the license status was updated, and that draws the user's attention to the particular license status so they can, there's so many different variables if we looked at all the different possible things that could change that it's easier just to notify them there was a change, and that clues them in to go in there and review that information for themselves and draw from that what they will.
And then the other thing is once you get in there, then there are the little circles with the question marks in them where you can click on that, and it tells you what the status, what that means. So each of the different, just like we have now of probation, you clicked on that, it would tell you exactly what it was. Delinquent, any of those definitions that we currently have in those buttons that you can go and click on that, and it'll pop up now on your phone.
Okay. And then the last question I have is just around archive. I know that you have it where you can sort of delete the doctor, but what if I wanted to go back to see who I deleted? Is there just sort of an imprint somewhere that could be created and I can just look? And I only say that because there's only 10 slots. And if I had 5 kids and my husband and myself and want to put my parents on there, 10 slots sounds like a lot for an individual who's single like me, but for a family, 10 slots is really not a lot. So I may find myself having to sacrifice and get rid of a doctor who we're still seeing. So is there a way that maybe just an archive could be there showing at least who we, sort of was tracking?
We could look at a type of a history, or maybe even
like a history,
activating or deactivating. I didn't want to get into the super technical details today, but that background fetch process that Apple proprietary has the algorithm on, they basically, when it decides to run, they give us 30 seconds to do what we need to do. Mm-hmm. And the DCA search interface, again, DCA did a great job on that. It's quick, but even if it takes 2 seconds for each license to go out and get the data, by the time that we do the comparisons and everything like that, we're running up against that 30-second clock. So there's a potential we could increase that 10 to 12, 15 maybe, but you start getting over that number, you run the risk of not being able to complete your process in time, and Apple actually penalizes you for that and stops running your task.
Gotcha.
So we have to make sure we can get it done in that 30-second block. But the idea of saying this one's enabled and this one's disabled for now, and maybe someday, and limiting them to enabling 10 of them is something we could look at for a future enhancement.
Dr. Lewis?
And real quick, I wanted to address the idea of the different phones too. So Frank did a great job of making this work on iPads and iPhones, and when I say that, it'll run on the oldest iPhone out there that you can buy right now to the $1,200 iPhone 10. I mean, it's the way the iOS applications work is you can build them to work across all of them. And we're not doing any advanced graphics work or anything like that here, where it should work on any phone. And we can actually test that while we're doing the development on running it on the older, smaller phone versus the giant 13-inch iPads now and stuff like that.
So we do have some time constraints. I wonder if each board member could limit themselves to one comment. Dr. Lewis?
Yeah, you've already answered the memory requirements for the phone, right? It will run on every single phone, and you don't have to tell the consumer, make sure you have this much RAM and this much, right? It works.
We've gone back to the model. It's currently the iPhone SE is the oldest model available that you can buy right now. If someone had like an iPhone 1 laying around, there are some operating system things that we'd have to check out, but 99% of them out there in the population.
So the other question is, the app can then just be loaded on your Mac, because if you want to get a tutorial, you really need another screen.
So can I load this app on my Mac in addition to the same app on my iPhone?
So the iPhone and the iPad run a different operating system than the MacBooks and iMacs and things like that. The Macs run what's called Mac OS, and the phones and the iPads run what's called iOS.
So I can't put this on the MacBook Pro? Or
Not in its current form. But there is, we'll have these same tutorials available through our website that you could go out there and view them on your Mac, but it really lends itself to training you on the device you're going to be using the app on and stuff too. So, it should work very well in that same resolution and screen size that you have on the device, but it will be available out there to watch.
And you're the go-to person for IT. Thank you for all your help, but call Sean if you have a problem. He'll answer you late at night. Well, not too late.
I'm actually very envious. This is something I've been thinking of for doing for quite some time, and in my recent change of job into the manager of the information system branch, I don't get to do as much programming as I used to get to do once, so I'm very envious Frank got to do this. Frank was into the iOS development himself in his personal life, and he brought that skill to the board and was able to take it and run with it with an idea we had in our heads. And so, again, this was developed by the Information System Branch. We had our web team helping with icons and all kinds of changes to our website, but Frank did a great job on it.
Thanks again. Mr. Warmoth?
As soon as you started talking, I went out to the App Store to see if I could find it. So my question is basically, what's your rollout schedule? And I would also like to be a beta tester.
A baby tester. Yeah.
I wanted to have you at the end of the presentation tell you it's available now, like something Steve Jobs would have done or something like that. But it's.
So I said no, just so you want to know. I said let the members see it first before we put it out there.
And I completely agreed that we wanted to get everyone's feedback, and we want to do that in-house testing too. So we have a little bit of development cleanup time to do, and then we want to do that testing. So it's probably something we're looking at more towards the beginning of the fiscal year, July. Just depends how long that testing does, how much bugs we find in the wild. It's one thing for us to test it in a simulator, and it's another thing to deploy it to some phones around the office and have people use it for a while and throw out some particular test cases. So, I mean, it's there. We're running. I mean, we can play with this on a real phone right now. Soon is what I want to say.
Sutton Wills?
Most of my questions were already answered. I commend you on the work on this, and I often look at the website on my phone, and so seeing the other capabilities will be great. One of the sections I just had a simple question on was fee exempt modifier code. So for a public member, that's fairly Greek to me, and so I'm also wondering, will there be something that makes it accessible to the everyday person who isn't
Yes.
kind of an explainer to the everyday person who doesn't do doctor lingo necessarily?
And so as Kim had mentioned, when you go out to DCA search, if a licensee does have a fee exempt modifier on their license, there's a special section that shows up just for those licensees. But there's a little blue bubble with a question mark in there, and you can click on there. And there's basically 4 different types of fee exemption. It's the volunteer, retired, disabled, and military service. It has a disclaimer style description of each of those. If it's applied to a license, you click on that little bubble, and it'll show you in long form a full description of what that
And so that
entails.
bubble feature is throughout the app then, so people can figure it out as they go along?
Yes, that bubble feature is a feature of the DCA search interface. We're just taking you there directly. And that way a user on a computer versus a user on our app is getting the same experience. If we fix something or add something to DCA search, it's automatically incorporated in the app, things like that.
Dr. Levine?
So this is awesome, and my questions have been answered. Thank you.
Before I go to the public, Ms. Webb, did anything come up legally when you were involved with the discussions with staff? The app? Okay, great.
This would be public record.
Yeah, it's all the same public data available with the DCA search, just a easier and more user-friendly way to get notified of those changes and get directly to the data.
And, the biggest thing is that we've always been, told that individuals, if you don't go out and check your doctor, or if you don't, know something happens, you may check it once and nothing happens after that. This is going to go straight to your phone. As soon as anything changes, you get it on your phone so you can see it.
I do have, sorry, one more.
Okay, short.
What percentage of licensees have provided an email address to the board currently?
Or high, I think the last time, because it was only like, we only had to mail out, how many did we mail out of the newsletter?
3,000?
I think we have less than, I'll say less than 5,000 individuals who we do not have an email address for.
So one suggestion would be an email blast to everyone whom you can find by email, letting them know the availability of this and that consumers are going to be using it, advising them to immediately download it from the App Store.
Applicants and licensees would be some of the first people we notify, for sure.
Are there public comments in the audience? From the phones?
There are no comments on the phone.
Thank you very much. You lived up to its notice that this was very exciting. Thank you.
Thank you all for having us.
Yep. Let's see here. Agenda number 5, presentation on the new public affairs outreach plan. Mr. Villatora and Ms. Simones. Welcome back again, Mr. Villatora, to the board, and we're excited to hear your presentations.
Is there an issue with you guys using the staff table just so we can have this for public comment with the timer?
MK. My message.
Are we ready?
Hello. Excuse me. My name is Carlos Villatoro, and I'm the Public Information Manager for the Medical Board of California. I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity today to come and present to you our communications plan. I don't know about you guys, but I am very, very excited about this app, mainly because it gives us some content to promote and to market the app. So I think Sean and Frank deserve quite a bit of credit for the ingenuity and this really game-changing piece of software that they come up with. And we are going to do everything in our power to market it. So we're going to start things off with a brief summary of what the Office of Public Affairs does. The Office of Public Affairs, OPA, directs the board's public relations, outreach, and marketing efforts. OPA's goal is to support the board's mission of consumer protection through proactive media relations and promotion and marketing of board actions, initiatives, and events. OPA plans to utilize several outreach and education tools to connect with audiences who consume information in more technologically advanced ways, such as the app rollout that we are planning to do, and at the same time, those who do not. In addition, OPA plans to institute methods to determine overall effectiveness of outreach campaigns. So in looking at this communications plan and developing it, one of the big questions that we had was, who is our target audience? And we came up with 3 main target audiences that we want to reach with this communications plan. The first are consumers of the state of California. The second are our licensees. And the third are our California lawmakers. As you can see, that lawmaker is very happy he just passed something. One of the biggest strategies that we plan to implement to help us achieve the goals in our strategic plan is social media. According to a recent Pew Research Center report entitled Social Media Use in 2018, Facebook and YouTube dominate the social media landscape, as notable majorities of U.S. adults use each of these sites. At the same time, younger Americans, especially those ages 18 to 24, stand out for embracing a variety of platforms and using them frequently. Some 78% of 18 to 24-year-olds use Snapchat, and a sizable majority of these users, 71%, visit the platform multiple times per year. 71% of Americans in this age group now use Instagram and close to half, 45%, are Twitter users. So people are using these tools to communicate. I don't know about you guys, but the news and information is delivered in ways that weren't really possible 10 years ago. And it's because of these technological advances in social media that they're able to get that information. So on social media, it's not enough to have an account. The content is really the king on social media. You have to be able to provide content that connects with your target audience and delivers the information that they're interested in. Content is king on social media as well as the internet. In order to increase the board's social media presence and provide the type of content that the board's users are most likely to connect with, OPA plans to implement several strategies, including but not limited to increasing the frequency of social media posts. This is something that we've kind of already started doing with our Twitter feeds, and I'm not sure if you follow us on Twitter, but you can see that we have been tweeting a little bit more regularly, and we have been doing so in Spanish as well. Offering unique content such as Facebook live chats, Ask Me Anythings, etc. Now, this is really uncharted territory for the board. This is something that we've never done before. And I can see us, if you guys can picture the rollout of this app, just to use the previous presentation as kind of fodder for us to think about. If we were to have one of our programmers on a Facebook live chat where he can connect directly with the users of Facebook, explain to them how to use the app, answer any questions that they have, it is a two-way communication. It is something that people will be able to connect with, and even if they don't join us for a live chat, Facebook saves that video and it becomes housed on your Facebook page in which you can share later. So it's a win-win to have this kind of thing using these social media strategies. Posting disciplinary actions on social media channels. Now, this is something that we already do through our subscriber lists. Everyone who signs up for these types of alerts will get these actions in their inbox. What we want to do is to start posting them on social media, just as a way to further inform the public of what the board is doing to protect them. Lastly, we would like developing social media campaigns for a variety of topics and offering Spanish versions of social media posts. With respects to the development of social media campaigns around certain topics, this is something that we plan to implement to promote the various actions of the board, the developments such as the app that we're planning to roll out. We have a legislative day coming up. That's correct. We plan to do a heavy social media campaign around that to give the public a better idea of what we do on a day-to-day basis. And it's something that, again, it's uncharted territory. We haven't done it before, but it's something that we feel would be beneficial for us to pursue and help us achieve the goals that were set forth in the strategic plan. So the board has these are the board's current social media assets. The board has a Twitter page. I'm sure you guys know that. We have a YouTube page where this meeting will be placed once it's done, and other videos. And the board has recently opened up a Facebook page. So for Twitter, and this is data as of April 4th, so these numbers could be slightly bigger. There are 353 Twitter followers, which makes it our most popular form of social media. For YouTube, we have 105 subscribers, and for Facebook, we have 47 likes. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. It's not a lot, but we are going to change that. We are going to develop these sites, provide content that users can connect with, and really develop our social media presence. Another big aspect of the communications plan, and again, these are things that we have never really done before, is the implementation of videos and podcasts. The board has purchased equipment, and you can see that equipment in the photo, to allow it to produce high-quality videos and podcasts for use on its website and YouTube channel. I briefly wrote some content ideas there, and I'll go through these. How awesome would it be for us to do a podcast or video on the upcoming changes to licensing? A video on how to file a complaint. A video on how the board's disciplinary process works. It's a question that we always get asked. A video on how to download and use the board's iPhone app. A video on how to check up on your doctor's license. A podcast interviews with you, the board members, executive director, and staff members. Or how cool would it be to have a podcast interview from special guests from other state agencies, such as CDPH, DHCS, the Board of Pharmacy, and even legislators. In the communications plan, you will also find a board blog. This is an idea that came to us really from the Department of Consumer Affairs. They currently host a blog in which they update regularly. The board will deliver daily content that will be beneficial for consumers and licensees alike. Posts will focus on shareable content. The blog will be updated once a day with fresh content. Content includes, but is not limited to, stories, aggregated content from other state agencies, photos, videos, of course, podcasts, and polls. The blog will incorporate the new logo that we've been working on as part of our rebranding initiative. Cutting-edge design elements and be WordPress-based, much like the DCA's page. The picture that you see on this slide to the right is actually the DCA's blog. If you've ever been to the DCA site, it looks vastly different than the blog. Ours will look similar to our page, but there will be some design elements that are clearly deviated from the main page. So, newsletter improvements. We have several ways that we want to improve the newsletter, one of which is increasing the frequency of the newsletter. OPA plans to increase the frequency of the newsletter publication to every month and a half. The publication dates are as follows: January 15th, March 1st, April 15th, June 1st, July 15th, September 1st, October 15th, and December 15th. Increasing the frequency of the newsletter will ensure that articles contained are timely, relevant, and useful to the board's target audience. Another major improvement that we plan to do with the newsletter is a redesign, a complete redesign. And we have to give credit again to Sean's team, who we've been working closely with on several design elements. The first of which you will be hearing will be the logo. You've probably seen that already. OPA and the board's information systems branch plan to redesign the newsletter with a fresh new name and a design that is more modern and more visually appealing. I created 3 mock-ups of what the possibilities are. These are not the final designs, but I did want to give you a glimpse of where we could go with it. And with that,
Before we move on, I wanted to clarify on the newsletter frequency. We'll probably get into discussion later, but it's not going to be the same kind of newsletter we see today. It's going to be a much shortened version. So on a quarterly basis, we'd have like the full newsletter like we have now, but on the basis that Mr. Villatoro was talking about, it'd be a very shortened version with just some articles of interest. It wouldn't include all the disciplinary actions and everything. So the idea was, we had talked to Ms. Pines a little bit about like getting information out there. So you don't have that huge newsletter every time, but just some articles that may be of interest to licensees. So I just wanted to clarify that before we start our discussion. It's not like we're doubling our workload or anything. We're just trying to kind of provide a shortened version that may be of interest to licensees. So,
And with that, we welcome your feedback and your questions.
Yeah, so the Medical Board Strategic Plan had a revamp of the outreach, and the ideas that are presented came from that strategic plan. Are there comments from the board? Dr. Levine?
Just a question, which is, what's the process for editorial review going to be for both the newsletter and I'm particularly interested in the blog? We have a great accountability to communicate. We have a greater responsibility that communication is accurate, relevant, and meaningful to the recipients. And I'm just wondering, with a daily blog, what is the process for editorial oversight and review?
Well, sorry.
I don't think we've gone. These are kind of like at the idea stage right now. I'm not sure with the blog if it would be like a overview by the executive director, or because I'm not sure that the editorial board would have time to review things on a daily basis. But with the newsletter, it would be much fewer articles, and it would also mean in the quarterly newsletters there'd be less content, more content spread around. But yes, we would definitely want the editorial board to look at those articles that go in the newsletter.
Right. I guess what I'm asking is, when you're thinking about putting out a blog, I think you need to, as part of that thinking, incorporate how you're going to assure the accuracy, relevance, and meaningfulness of what's in there to those who are going to be seeing it, particularly if it's something like a daily blog.
Yes, there will be a lot of planning, and right now we have not entered the planning stage of the blog. However, when we do launch it, we are not going to launch it without content. We will have a good 2 to 3 weeks of content ready to go to roll out, that we will definitely put through the editing cycle that we establish with our executive director and the board.
Okay.
When you engage in social media and blogs, there tends to be a voice or a personality. And I'm not necessarily saying of person's voice or a person's personality, but what our personality as the board is going to be. And have you guys given some thought to what that looks like? Because that will define the kind of words that we would consistently use, what we say, what verbs that we're using, so that's consistent across all the platforms. So that if I'm on Twitter and I'm on Facebook reading something, that the voice personality should feel the same.
Oh, absolutely. Our social media efforts will very much remain a state agency. Dare I say, a bureaucratic voice. Mm-hmm. It will. There will be really no room for any kind of personality, so to speak. It will be just straight to the point information for the most part.
Okay, so just factual information. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
I nominate Ms. Pines to the advisory board.
One.
Is there an advisory board?
It's an editorial board.
Other comments from the audience? Comments from the phones?
There are no comments on the phone.
Okay. So we have a little bit of a time crunch. We have to make sure we can present our Alzheimer's presentation. We have item number 6, discussion and possible action on change of the name of the board's newsletter. And I wonder if we can be brief in that. So do we have the names? Standard names. Is she presenting that?
So what we did is we actually did through our newsletter. We offered individuals to send us ideas on newsletter names. We wanted to change our newsletter from the name of just the newsletter, Medical Board Newsletter, to something more catchy. And so we thought, let's leave it up to our viewers to see what they think. So we got a list of about 30 individuals. From that list, we actually sent it to our board president and vice president. And from that list, they have whittled it down to these top 5 I think we have here. So we're not saying that it absolutely has to be one of these 5, but these were the best out of the ones that we had received. So the first one was Medical Board of California News. So really it's just shortening from newsletter to news. Golden State Medical Board Alert, Toward a Healthy California, Medical Board Monitor, and then State of California Health Alert. So those were the ones that had been brought forward. And again, at this point, we'd like to hear from the members. Do any of them look good, something that you'd like to use, or you have an idea of your own?
Comments starting with Dr. Kraus, and we'll go in my direction.
I'm sad to reflect that the only one that really identifies us is the first one, but it's the dullest one. And I am concerned that, especially if something's delivered electronically, that people will look at the subject and not know what it is unless it's the first one.
Right, yeah.
Dr. Lewis?
Well, the Toward a Healthy California sounds like the health plan.
Can you use the microphone, please?
To the Healthy California sounds like the health plan. The word alert alarms me. I don't really like the word an alert. So is this like a FDA or a CDC alert? I agree with Dr. Ross, the first one. It's, I want to yawn, but it's a newsletter, and I mean,
And if it's shorter, it will be, it's like a newspaper. You're trying to get out news as fast as you can.
Yeah, I don't see Golden State at all. There's an organization called the Golden State, so it gets, association, so it gets mixed up, I would think.
Okay.
Pines, do you have any comments? Ms. Pines, any comments? Mr. Warmoth, any comments?
Yes, frankly, I agree with what everybody said, but the only one that really I like is the third one. I mean, it's the only one that has any interest to get people to read it.
Well, maybe it's a tagline.
Yeah.
Maybe it's Medical Board of California News with the tagline of Toward a Healthy California.
Yeah, right.
Just a thought?
A sub one. Different font.
Sutton
Different
Wills?
font.
Yeah,
That's
different font.
exactly what I was going to say. I agree with Mr. Wormuth that the Medical Board of California News is the appropriate title with the subtitle Toward a Healthy California, and I think that would be perfect.
Dr. Levine?
Yeah, I agree. I had problems with anything that doesn't reference the medical board. And I like the idea of a tagline that speaks to our mission. I'm not sure that a healthy California speaks directly to our mission as opposed to protecting the health of Californians or promoting the health of Californians through its licensing and enforcement, unspoken through its licensing and enforcement functions. Toward a Healthy California, there's let's get, the secretary's Let's Get Healthy California.
That's right, yeah.
It sounds too much
Too
like
close
that
to
to
that.
me.
One suggestion. No.
Sutton Wills?
Toward an Informed California.
Because
is
that
my
is both
amendment to that.
patient and physician.
Is anyone willing to make a motion?
How about Californians?
I'm going to make a motion that the name of the newsletter be Medical Board of California News. It's simple, it says it all, and then we don't get involved in, well, it could mean this, it could mean this. Just keep it clean. We've used it.
Is there a second for discussion? Is there a second?
Yeah.
No second.
I think I love the idea of including something that is aspirational in it. We can debate. Do we have to decide today? Is that
Do we have to?
deal?
We do not. We can go back and look for a tagline to go with it. We can switch it to Medical Board of California News right now. What I was looking for is, for our next meeting, you're going to get a copy of the brand new strategic plan, and I cannot remember for the life of me what our tagline is for our vision. So what if we use the vision of our newsletter as the tagline? We developed it. I can't. Mary Kate, do you have a strap?
Yeah, we spent a lot of time talking about it, too.
Yeah, we just did it, and but if you give me 1 minute, let me see if we can get that, and then.
Have we lost our vision?
No, I've lost it.
Oh, you're the right person for her to see.
Okay, so the vision is, it's a little long, to be the premier consumer protection agency leading the effort to advance high-quality, safe medical care. So it could be, we choose to advance high-quality, safe medical care. That's a tagline that we have, which is really kind of our.
It would fit on an 8.5 by 11 versus the.
Not the whole thing. We can't do
10
the
by
whole
14.
thing. That's not a tagline. That's a sentence.
In order to move the agenda here, could I suggest that we go ahead and approve this motion and work on a tagline for the next meeting?
Yep.
Second.
Any further discussions on that?
So is that adding to Ron? That's adding. You're seconding really to Ron's.
Seconding mine.
You're amending it.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Comments from the audience? Comments from the phone?
There are no comments on the phone.
Ms. Cruz-Jones, you take a roll?
I got it. Okay. Dr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Dr. Kraus?
Aye.
Dr. Levine?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Pines? Aye. Ms. Sutton-Wills?
Yes?
Mr. Wormuth?
Aye.
Okay. Motion passes.
Thank you very much. I'd like to apologize to our speakers. Item number 7, presentation on Alzheimer's disease detection, diagnosis, and disease management by Mr. Terrence Kelly from the Alzheimer's Disease Program, California Department of Public Health, and Dr. Sarah Creeman from the Mary S. Easton Center for Alzheimer's Disease Research at the University of California. I hope you allow me to not read your bio and allow you to do your presentation for the sake of time. Just to mention that Mr. Kelly's background is in social and behavioral sciences, and Dr. Sarah Creeman is a physician, medical degree, and she's at UCLA. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Terrence Kelly, the program manager for the Alzheimer's Disease Program at Department of Public Health. And with me is Dr. Sarah Creeman, the neurologist and director of the California Alzheimer's Disease Center.
Speak a little louder or move the microphone closer to you, please.
Is this better?
Yes.
All right. We're glad to present to you today and want to thank the chair and the members of the medical board as well as the staff. We're here to tell you about the 2017 guidelines for Alzheimer's disease management and give a general overview of the process, content, and dissemination. We're also here to provide an overview of our toolkit for early diagnosis and detection of Alzheimer's disease, and we will take questions at the end of the presentation. Just a little bit of a background on the program. The program's primary function is grant administration for 10 California Alzheimer's disease centers and administration for Alzheimer's disease and related dementia research grants, as well as education and training of health professionals. The program was established through Assembly Bill 2225 in 1984. And was extended by Senate Bill 139 in 1988. As of 2017, the centers in total have treated roughly 1,300 patients and diagnosed about 700 cases of dementia. The research grants, which are funded through a voluntary contribution fund, since its inception has provided more than $24 million for over 125 research projects encompassing the areas of basic science, caregiving, diagnosis, epidemiology and behavior management, biomarkers, early detection, and drug therapies. A yearly comprehensive program evaluation of the 10 centers is performed to better monitor activities and understand the expanding needs of Californians living with Alzheimer's and their caregivers. This is just a slide to show the center's locations throughout the state of California. This is a slide that presents the dementia primary diagnoses from 2015 to 2016. As you can see from the chart, probable Alzheimer's disease was the most cited primary diagnosis for dementia patients examined at the centers, followed closely by possible Alzheimer's disease. Mixed diagnosis was the third most common form of dementia. Our next slide discusses the 2017 guideline for Alzheimer's disease management, which was updated in statute per Senate Bill 613. The program, in partnership with the Alzheimer's Association, conducted work groups comprised of stakeholder experts in Alzheimer's disease, and the meeting took place on June 29, 2016. The stakeholder group included a number of representatives, including gerontology specialists, neurology specialists, psychiatrists, and principal investigators from the California Alzheimer's Disease Centers. In 2012, the Let's Get Healthy California framework, led by Secretary Dooley, has one of the focus areas of living well, preventing and managing chronic disease. Our guideline followed this framework. Again, the 2017 update reflects new evidence, improved practice, and changes in law. This is the 4th edition of the California Alzheimer's Clinical Care Guideline, and it was first published in 1998 to address changes in scientific evidence, clinical practice, and state and federal law. The guideline contains 4 primary topics of assessment, care plan, education, and support, and important considerations.
Hi. So I'll take it from here. The guideline essentially is just 2 pages, and we're hoping we tried to make it simple so that it wouldn't just get put on a shelf, because we know that primary care providers and everybody else are very busy. So I'm actually going to forward here. It has 2 sides. The first side was basically to update what had happened essentially since the previous update in 2008. It has 2 major categories, basically new government policies and emerging practice trends. And we summarize some of those things. For example, new well visit and the new GEO 505 visit, which contains a little bit of information about how to code for a comprehensive cognitive visit that can be done by primary care doctors. Updating and informing about the PULSed physician's order for life-sustaining treatment, making people aware of the Social Security Compassionate Allowance for early onset dementia, which was added to the list, and then a Healthy Brain Initiative program, and then emerging practice trends, basically since the last time, with an emphasis on early detection and black box warnings for antipsychotics, the importance of early detection in general for diagnosis of dementia and Alzheimer's disease, gaps in disclosure and documentation, and the importance of making a documented care plan, and lastly, the importance of lifestyle modification, as data has come out showing how important that is in terms of trying to reduce the risk of dementia. So the other side of it, we broke up into basically 4 categories based on the previous guideline. The top section there, which is very small, it's assessment, basically reviewing the important factors you need when you see a patient in clinic in terms of getting the history, the appropriate assessments, management. And also we put an emphasis on trying to get to know the patient and know who the family caregiver is, understanding that everybody comes to a diagnosis with different cultural backgrounds and different diversity, and that we need to recognize that. The second section is the care plan, basically that touches on disease management, and also not only just with pharmacotherapeutics for the disease itself, but also emotional, behavioral, and mood changes, as this oftentimes accompanies dementia. Just to document goals of care, to discuss healthy living and also referral to clinical trials, because many patients don't know much about that, and we can't advance science or try to help people with these diseases without that important part. The third section is education and support, essentially trying to promote connecting primary care providers to their community and to use local resources, as there's many resources in the community that can help become part of the care team, that the primary care providers are not alone in trying to manage patients' dementia. And lastly, important considerations, as makes up the last section, with advanced care planning, capacity assessment, elder abuse, driving, and eligibility. Eligibility for, I can't read that. Benefits. Eligibility for benefits, sorry. Okay. So the 10 California Alzheimer's disease centers will be using this guideline and promoting it to primary care providers and to healthcare systems in their local communities and local areas in Northern and Southern California, with the intent to help primary care physicians and extenders to offer comprehensive care to patients with Alzheimer's disease. And it's already been promoted with the help of California Department of Health and Alzheimer's Association on their websites, and also to some various programs, including to the California Primary Care Association and the California Academy of Family Physicians Foundation.
So our program at the state worked with the Physician Consortium for Performance Improvement to incorporate the guideline into a recommended National Quality Forum, a clinical quality measure used by CMS for the physician quality reporting system. The current measure, version 6, is CMS 149 version 6 dementia cognitive assessment, and has been used in physician quality reporting by CMS since 2014. Next, we'll talk about our early detection and diagnosis toolkit. Health and Safety Code Section 125-280 was changed to include a focus on early diagnosis and accurate detection of Alzheimer's disease. In addition, the legislation called for determining the standard of care in early and accurate diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease, focusing on Medicare and Medicaid policy and reimbursement. Since the late summer of 2016, the program has led a planning committee work group along with all the 10 centers to develop a toolkit that addresses the legislative intent. Dr. Howard Rosen, a neurologist from UCSF, has been leading the effort with the CADCs, and there's been a focus on African American women, Latinos, and health disparities.
So the 10 CADCs basically have gotten together and decided we wanted to produce a toolkit to help improve clinical practice in the diagnosis of cognitive disorders in the primary care setting, acknowledging that within the primary care setting there are many, many challenges in being able to do this because of there's people who come in with so many problems that they have to be taken care of, and this is a big one. Cognitive care takes a lot of time that primary care providers may not have. Also, they might have inadequate resources being able to detect appropriately, or not know exactly what they should be using in terms of quick tools that they could pick up problems. So we basically tried to put ourselves in that situation and thought about what could we do to help primary care providers in terms of improving earlier detection. So this toolkit essentially contains an introduction about what setting to use it in based off of the annual wellness visit that's now required by Medicare, and basically going off of that, then providing information in a easy-to-use way about how to take the history, what are the important parts to hit for the physical, the cognitive evaluation, and specifically what questions really should be used, and how to act based on the answers that you get. So really trying to provide some some easy guidance. So, for example, even though this is very small, this is an example of how a question would be handled. So we have an open-ended question. Do you have any problems with your memory or your thinking? And in the green column, it would be sort of a normal kind of, well, you know, every once in a while I have problems, but I can always end up remembering it. Essentially, if you come up with certain answers that seem kind of benign and normal to a specialist that we see a lot, we'd say, that's probably normal aging. If you come up with questions that maybe, you know, you think, there's a problem, but it seems fairly consistent with Alzheimer's disease, that would be maybe the yellow columns. And the red column is where somebody's definitely telling you, hey, something that they just said triggers you and says, you need to send them to a specialist. Don't wait on this. Send it to the specialist. And what we've tried to do that is for all sections. So cognitive care, the physical exam, things that trigger that once they get to a specialist, we know those things regularly, but a primary care doctor may not. And we want to give them that information to help them feel more comfortable with a basic run-of-the-mill Alzheimer's disease, but to flag things early. Hey, if this seems unusual, send them to the specialist earlier. This will also be giving them guidance on labs and imaging, for example, what kind of imaging and labs to run, and again, what to do when you get that result, and what is important or what's normal, and you can go ahead and keep them in your practice versus, hey, this needs a specialist. We also are providing that kind of information for counseling and as well billing guidance.
As part of our toolkit, we also developed an application. Well, the state paid for an application to be developed by Stanford University. Stanford University California Alzheimer's Disease Center developed a geriatric depression and dementia scale mobile application as a new tool to aid in the detection and diagnosis of cognitive impairment and dementia. The device is also intended as a tool for early diagnosis. The geriatric and depression screening application can be used in a myriad of clinical settings to assess symptoms of depression and other mental health conditions and potential cognitive impairment without impinging on valuable face-to-face clinical time. It conducts assessments in 10 different languages using both written and verbal prompts for patients and their families. Providers enter a private code to receive the results, and there's no PHI or public health information stored on the device for patient security and privacy. Thank you again. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much, and apologies for the short time. Comments from the, or questions from the board? Dr. Krause? Oh, Dr. Levine.
Yeah, just a couple questions. Your pie chart shows percentages. What's the N?
Oh, let's see.
I'm just curious as to what the numbers that the state is dealing with.
So we had around, in the pie chart that you saw, that was data from 2015-16. We had about 588 patients that were diagnosed with dementia as a primary diagnosis, or underlying cause was also determined out of 22 other possibilities. So if they're not seeing...
and this is just at the 10 centers. This is not statewide data.
Right, correct.
So that's my second question. Did you involve folks, both end users as well as specialists from outside of the 10 centers, both either in terms of the guideline development or the testing of the toolkit?
Yeah, in the guidelines, we had a number of individuals that were involved in the development outside of the centers. The Office of the Patient Advocate through the California Department of Managed Care, as well as advocates from many chapters of the Alzheimer's Association. We also invited health plans, directors of some of those health plans, some of the...
So it was an open...
Yeah, it was an open forum,
process.
yeah, or open process.
And then my final question is, unfortunately, the print is small in here. the one thing I didn't see on your slides was around the guideline was a discussion of pharmacotherapy, both initiation and deprescribing. Is that in there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
How will you determine the utility of the toolkit? Is there a follow-up?
So the toolkit is not, it's almost ready to be tested. And we've talked a lot about that, and the state is requiring us to show utility. So actually, the UCSF, where this is being headed by Dr. Rosen, they already have run one focus group with primary practice providers, but we're going to be doing other focus groups now throughout the CADCs, and eventually are going to be developing methods to be able to test it more fully once we roll it out amongst health. We're hoping to enroll health plans, or to get health plans to take this on as well.
We look forward to your return. Any comments or questions from the audience? From the phones?
There's a question from Susan Lauren. Your line is now open. Hi. I wanted to come in person today, but a surgeon disabled me in 2011, so I wasn't able to. You may recall from my previous phone calls that I was petite with breasts large enough to cause me pain. So my physician highly recommended a board-certified plastic surgeon for breast.
Excuse me, is the question related to Alzheimer's dementia?
Excuse me?
We're speaking about Alzheimer's dementia. Is your question or comment related to that subject?
No, I was told to call in at 2:30 for my public.
Okay, we're not there yet. So stay on the line, and an assistant will help you when it's time to speak to
And
that.
when will that be?
Sometime in the next 15 minutes, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from the phones?
There are no questions on the phone.
Thank you. Finally, next item is future agenda items. Do committee members have any? Dr. Kraus.
At the appropriate time, I'd like us to have an update on the Physician Health and Wellness Program.
Thank you. Anyone else? Comments from the audience? Future agenda items? From the phones?
There are no comments on the phone.
There's no. Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Wendy Connor. I spoke earlier today. I hope you will take my suggestion seriously about monitoring older physicians and their capabilities to provide adequate health care. Thank you.
We will, and it is an agenda item this quarterly board meeting. So I hope you'll stay and will participate.
Thank you.
So I want to thank everybody for being here today and for participating in this meeting. And the meeting is now adjourned at 2:40 p.m. Thank you.